And be too good for this world. All right, next session. All right, so to give you guys session recap. First of all, I guess, welcome to Friday Night Dungeons and Dragons. I'm your host, DM, Revy Nightfire, or Ryan.
Couldn't have it any other way.
Or Mr. Bakey, whatever you prefer.
DM
Bakey. All right, so last session, you guys had found in the dungeon, which I will not recap. You can go back to the first video. A spiral staircase that seemed to be different from the rest of the dungeon, as if sort of a collision of geography occurred, and the sinking of what you would later find out to be a crypt in a cathedral. Going down the spiral staircase, you guys found a door. After analyzing the door, you guys realized that the door was picked. And from the druid tracking down the spiral staircase, wet footprints, or muddy footprints rather, you guys knew that you weren't alone. This is all but confirmed when you opened the door to find, first, a body of a paladin lying on the ground. Second, the entire room was surrounded by wights, their arms crossed, seemingly watching you as you entered the room. Upon examination of the paladin, it seems he was undone in hand-to-hand combat with a tiefling. Both its horns either ripped off or crushed, his sword cast aside. You guys were able to suss out that the bodies against the walls were wights. You initiated a preemptive attack against the wights. The cleric, raising his hand and calling upon his divine nature to cast the most powerful turn undead to be yet cast this campaign, instantly annihilated probably 3/4 of the wights in the room. They had no choice but to succumb to your divine radiance as they exploded, leaving zero traces of their pitiful existence. What remained was not one but twice fireballed by the wizard, exploding and burning into nothing. Upon recovering for the rude interruption, you guys examined the body further, realizing that the paladin must have sort of discarded his weapon to solely focus on the tiefling in order to end the life of the infernal being. Cast aside and far away was a rusted, deteriorated-looking sword that upon picking up and inspecting, after a while, persistence, greeted you. Shocked, you discovered that after it transformed, it was a rare, incredibly rare artifact belonging to the paladin, a sword one named Ramona. Moving forward, in the next room, you guys discovered the body of a rogue upon the ground, presumed dead. Due to the brutality that you guys seen of the body position and the blood upon the wall, it seemed that something ginormous had hurled her against the wall. You guys found a journal. In it, you discovered that I would rather say that you confirmed that you weren't alone. There was another adventuring party in here seeking after a completely separate artifact than you're seeking for. In that journal, you note the sort of day-to-day life of the rogue at hand, having been named sort of the fleet after pulling off an amazing heist that for once was considered in the favor of the public, for it was against the Iron Legion, a common hated foe in Aldania. After pulling off his heist and gaining this acclaim, the rogue was in the midst of sort of dealing with that, accepting it, rejecting it, trying to be cool in her journal, but at the end confessing that she liked the attention. This attention grabbed her a job commissioned by two bards. one who would become her lover, and the other later in the cathedral, her fated foe. Jealousy being a weapon in a mini drama that occurred on the way to you dealing with larger issues. Upon leaving the room, Rogue in tow, you guys found their party's cleric brutally flayed in agony. Rune mercifully ending her life as you guys went into combat with the headsman and relatively quickly dispatched of the fire giant that you later learned with heroic efficiency. After which, he proceeded to what was very, very clearly the main event down here. Double doors opening into a wide cathedral. Inside, being conducted by an undead bishop, was an unsanctimonious wedding going off. The bride was unable to move or twitch. It seems you interrupted at just the right time, for the announcement was about to be made to kiss the bride, and the groom was undead, likely to devour the bride. However, the undead bishop found more interest in the bard's hatred for the rogue and entertained a fight. The druid, emboldened, boldly attacked the undead bishop, drawing him into the fray, which you guys quickly were able to determine was a little bit more than you can handle, at least with the bard and higher undead. You guys, I will say, correctly determined early, before it was too late, that another option needed to be taken in the fight, which I confess as your DM was what I was looking for. Rune reached for the bone coin, but I allowed to relent that, because merely what I was looking for as your DM was you to seek another option besides combat. And so, Rune passing a brutal, in fact, requirement of 3 checks consecutively against the undead bishop was not given, manages to convince him into a game of dragon chess. However, there was something else at play. Something that will be the focus of tonight's session. And so, as we walk back into play, before Rune so boldly spoke against the bishop and challenged him to chess, if you were to rewind time, one of you was about to make a grave mistake. So great a mistake that could endanger everything that they cared about and loved. Before Rune ever spoke, winding back the clock, Kalik, seeing his party being withered more and more, reached into his bag and pulled out a scroll. And before Rune ever challenged the bishop, as it were, Rune was about to do Kalik was about to do something. Kalik, as you fingered the scroll, Before Rune spoke, what was it that you were about to do?
Let's make sure I get the spell name right, sorry. Okay. Seeing as it is, everybody's looking in critical condition, I was, reaching into my pouch to pull out the wish scroll. And I was going to use it to cast Mass Heal.
Kalik, as you have that scroll in hand, pulling it out, you hear an accusatory voice. Your entire life you felt like you had some eye watching over you, that you could make a mistake at any moment. You don't know why you felt that, but you feel as somebody who's sort of reached into the fire and been burned. You're so careful of the decisions that you make. And yet, you pulled out the scroll to save your companions. You hear an accusatory voice come over the room. You were going to do it, weren't you? You were going to make the same mistake again.
I look around to the same mistake.
You were going to use the scroll, weren't you, Kalik?
Weren't you, Kalik?
Your companions freeze in time. This is it. The moment you've been waiting for your entire life. You've been so careful. Chronomancer. You were going to throw away it all. Throw away everything. Weren't you?
I didn't throw away anything. Saving my companions like I promised I would.
As you justify yourself to no one in the room, you look around and your companions are frozen in time, unable to move. Yet, as you shout your protestations, you felt like this, Kalik, your entire life. You were so careful, methodical, and everything. You've thought out every plan, every way to make sure you're making the perfect choice. You've done this because inherently you felt like you could make the wrong one. Somehow, amidst this moment, it's like you were expecting it. Like you knew you were almost going to make the mistake. As that realization hits you and everything is frozen around you, nothing changes. You look around the room, the bishop himself, frozen. The room, frozen. All you hear is the ticking of the clock.
Start clocking this room and just look around. Show yourself.
Roll perception. You know it's behind you. You're afraid to look.
And everybody's frozen, including the spectral.
Every single thing. The things that you thought way higher and above you and powerful in this room are now frozen yet to another force.
Do I recognize the voice?
Yes. But you can't place it. But you recognize it. You've been waiting for this your entire life, you know. You've been in fear your entire life. Something was wrong from the minute you were born, so cautious, so paranoid.
said I would protect them, I would make them stronger. I swore to myself like that.
Are they what matters to you?
Yes, they are.
Wrong again, Gaelic. There's only one thing that matters to you. Only her. And you were gonna throw it all away again. You were so close. How many times? How much must I sacrifice? How many limbs shall I give for you to make the right choice?
I'm gonna slowly turn around behind me.
It's there, just as you expected it to be. Well, just over here. Yeah. It's there, just as you expected it to be. Down the hall, behind you, you become focused. Time is frozen. On the far side of the cathedral, there is a clock ticking, calling to you.
I'll step towards it.
You walk towards the clock. As you walk, approaching this instrument of time itself, you begin to see flashes coming across your vision, to the left and to the right. A headache begins to sort of set in. You can feel it. What mistake have I made? What have I done wrong this time? You've always known this voice is because you've always felt like you were always being watched. You were always being judged at every single moment. That's why you did everything in your power to make sure that you were perfect, to make sure that you never made a mistake. But these mirages around you appear to the left and to the right. You're like, is it a monster? Is it a monster? You get flashes of it. It's so familiar, yet so foreign. You wait for the next manifestation. No, you judge. Not a monster. Not a monster at all. A horribly disfigured man. You've seen him in your peripherals. And what you are searching for in your gaze as you walk towards the clock, Kalek, now you are trying to avert your eyes because you are on the verge of remembering something that you desperately do not want to remember. His body is wrapped nearly head to toe. The bandages are stained from weeping wounds underneath. His face partially uncovered, sliced and disfigured. On his waist is a book that looks all too familiar to you. What do you do? You hold your head against the ground and plead against an uncaring witness. He's still there, but you need to make yourself look at him.
I slowly turn so he's in sight, in the focus.
As you do, as you try to force your pupils to look at even 10% of this being. Roll perception.
On dirty 20.
You manage to gain the constitution to remind yourself of who you are. This is unnerving, but it's not unforeign to you. You can do this. There's something you know as you think about it rationally, nostalgic here, something from your childhood, something perhaps even before You force yourself to look at him, but he disappears. The man's image continues to disappear and reappear around you as you keep your pace vigilantly towards the clock. You all of a sudden start to feel emotion. He's angry with me. And you second guess it. Why do I feel that way? Why do I care? And all of a sudden, you, out of the corner of the eye, due to your perception check, get another look at his waist, at the book that hangs upon it. So familiar, yet different in one manner. The book he's carrying has the eye gouged out of it. Just as thick, just as filigreed, just as what is on your waist.
Go to grab Grammy.
You see the eyeball look innocently at you as you take a breath. Yours is fine. Grimmy is okay. All of a sudden, as you try to now boldly look at him, you see him clearly bandaged, disfigured. Every detail you pick up as he says, "You nearly ended it. You ended us. It's approaching 8 million attempts! 8 million!" He begins to flash more erratically around you. How much more do you think I can take? How many more times do you think I can endure this? As it begins to flash around you.
But I haven't done anything.
His figure, his image ahead of you begins to sort of disform, as if he can no longer hold himself together. But then in a roar of defiance, "No! I will exist! Listen to me! Listen to me!" As he pulls himself into existence. Out of breath, he rubs his face and a portion of it comes off as he flicks it to the side. We have never, listen to me, Kellic, never in all of our attempts, had aberrations occur like we have in this one. As many times as we've gone through the loop, never. This is our only chance as he disappears. And you're sort of, the clock's getting closer as you're walking towards it.
Only chance for what?
You approach the clock, the aberration seemingly distilled for now. The clock looks old, probably built when the cathedral was built. Yet, in the frozen time, it is functioning perfectly, ticking away while it stands in place. You examine it, and something does not feel quite right about its construction to you. You can investigate.
What roll?
Investigation. 13. Good enough. You nearly missed it. Hiding in plain sight. The swinging pendulum in the clock is no pendulum at all, but it seems to be a pocket watch, swinging back and forth in place.
Is the pocket watch what's making the clicking sound, or is it the actual overall clock itself?
You can't tell. Sound is emanating. Normally the pendulum would make the sound. You hear it. But then you don't. Or then you do.
Is it open? I can see the handles on the pocket watch.
You can see a door to the clock, a handle.
I'm gonna look back to see if my eyes are still frozen.
Frozen in place. Still as the grave.
I'm gonna reach for the handle and try to open it.
You are shaking, presumably, as you look at the watch. You know, reaching for this instinctively is going to change you forever. That you'll never be the same. Part of you wants to run, the other part of you knows you can't. And a small part of you knows you've done this billions of times before. You reach for the clock, and it seems to want to escape you, as its face seems to depress and elongate backwards. And it begins to sort of grow and begin to sink into a hole in the wall, as if you, and it's more as you try to reach for it, the more it seems to retreat from you. The clock begins to break apart, destroy itself, rip apart. Each piece flies behind itself against the wall. The numbers expand. They begin to form a line, an even line, a clear line that begins to twist in a spiral as it's sucked into this strange yet familiar vortex appearing before you. You stand, waiting, watching. Reality seemed to bend before you, but you're not surprised or shocked. Something deep within you knows. You've seen this before. An image begins to form at the end of the tunnel. It's incoherent and indescribable. And then the being appears to you again once more. Behind you, in your peripheral. Your senses have dulled. You are the weakest iteration. You, yet, have the most potential.
Iteration of what?
Iteration of what? Do you know who I am?
I have a good idea, unfortunately.
Pray tell.
You're me from a different timeline. There's only one Grimmy.
You're half right. The correct question, though, was, who are we? Interesting. An interesting question, if one is to think about it. As for who am I, separate from you, I suppose I am deja vu, the ghost of your many futures and futures past.
Myself. What is it that you're trying to tell me here?
Tell you? I'm not trying to tell you anything. You're trying to remember. The scroll triggered your memory. As I said, I am deja vu. I am not alive, nor can I answer anything you haven't already known. You are an aberration. You are our best hope and her only chance. You can have all your questions answered by answering one question.
What question is that?
What time is it?
I'm gonna look at the pocket watch.
You look up at the pocket watch, it's utterly destroyed. It's gone. Like everything's sucked into the wall. Make a history check for me.
It's 25. Oh, actually, I have advantage on history. Just to make sure. Oh, okay, 25.
You, skilled at history, you feel, even in this pressure and chance, and challenging foe, defiance, as you always have, against what is being presented before you. So you, in defiance, I will never be the butt of the joke. I will never be caught off guard. I will never be laughed at. Go to remember. But you can't. Not because you're not capable of recalling, but because you hate the question, what time is it? You remember being asked this so many times, and it's always irritated you. It's always made you insidious. But you can't remember why. You need to remember. It feels important to you. You must remember. Roll another history check, Gaelic.
26.
Okay. You're doing really good. I'm just going to let you know that. You're getting a +5 on all these checks. All right, so you get the full information. You remember, Gaelic, why that question irritates you so much. Because it reminds you of a time that you used to care about time. It reminds you of a time when your life was far happier and full of joy. It reminds you begin to see flashes in your vision, going almost comatose. You see yourself wearing clothes you don't recall, running through woods you don't recall. You are running through the woods. Now you recall it. You think, I was so happy. Why am I not there? Where was I then? You look back. You're holding the hands of Mary. A younger Mary. Doe-eyed, innocent, in love. You watch yourself run to a lake for a long kiss. Your heart begins to break for reasons that you can't remember. But why does it make you hate that question, Gaelic? Flashes. You begin to see flashes. A familiar vision. The prophecy, as it were. The very same thing you've been seeing since your birth. Visions of her. Visions of you. Millions of you. You remember why, in a moment of inspiration, that question irritates you. Because it reminds you, once again, that you used to care about time. And in a moment, you remember what you've forgotten this time around. That it irritates you because it reminds you of a time before you figured out that time is not real. As you come to that epiphany, your mind seems to nearly explode. To a normal person, this would nearly drive them to the edges of madness, but you've been through this before. You know what this feels like as the skin begins to crack on your hands and your arms, what awakening feels like. You begin to remember things that you've forgotten. I would say long forgotten, but you've remembered them several times before. And so as this sort of cracks up your hand, you're starting to feel it. You're getting more flashes. You're forcing yourself to look away at what's standing next to you. Memories are flooding in, but they're confusing. They're mixing. No, I am a chronomancer. I perform chronomancy. I am a master of time. As you try to remember, you know you're missing something. Something in all of this, as it begins to crawl up your arm, the pain it threatens to tear away your concentration. As the world spins around you, Kalik, everything in a moment becomes still. As the bandaged man, as you seem to be almost getting consumed, as you feel your life force sort of draining for you, you feel hands sort of clap on your face and grab you as you get your hold on reality once more. You've remembered. You're shattering. You need to find your source. She would have left it to you somewhere in time. Without it, you will not be able to travel long, but you will succumb shortly. You must remember what you are. There is not much time. Learn quickly. Look past the illusion that is time. Look around you. As you're sort of standing there and you see the clock and there's your perceptions, but now there's a newfound remembrance that time is a construct. Every chronomancer knows that. As you begin to look around you, you see infinite corridors in all directions, in directions that cannot be explained. Yes, Kalik, you're remembering. I must teach you a painful lesson. Kalik, take a step to your right. As you move, you feel yourself. You feel the infinite dimensions around you in a way that you never have in your current life. As you begin to step left, it's almost like you're peeling through a curtain. You almost feel disgusted by where you were before. Reality, an illusion. You remember your hatred for it, a hatred long forgotten. Blackness is on all sides of you. You're doing well. You are remembering quickly. You've traveled 0.00001 second into the past, but you remember not where you are. Kalik, again I say, I am sorry to do this, but you must remember. Take one more step to your right. As you obediently step once more to the right. At first, it was the same as before. But now fear comes over you. Terror. You don't know how. But it spotted you. But what has spotted you? You don't know, but you know that you're exposed, you're seen. Something you've been trying to avoid. It knows where you are now. Ahead of you, in the previous infinite blackness, a slit appears out of the dark and begins to separate as you begin to see a gleaming white iris or cornea, the bottom of it, as the slits begin to separate continually. And you know when they open, they're going to gaze at you. And you know when they gaze at you that you will be over. Everything about you will end. As the two massive slits separate, nearly starting to crest the iris, you hear a desperate voice, Kalik, come back now! Come back now! 2 steps to the left.
What was that?
Paradox. I am deja vu. I can only answer what you already know. You now have the power to find your own answers. But you are shattering and must find your source. Before you find your source, you must find out what you are. Search time. You can access all the memories of your wayward and tragic existence.
What is the source?
Goodbye, aberration. You are our last best hope and her only chance. As the aberration dissipates without answer to your question, you find yourself alone. You were always alone, but more alone than ever before. But now, you can feel the power. You can feel infinite ropes, infinite strands of string in this very spot that you stand in, at this very moment. You know everything that is happening is where it's supposed to be. And so far, even though you are going to make a mistake, everything is going according to plan. But it almost wasn't. You feel the fear in the bottom of your stomach. You almost erred. You almost erred again. You can feel it. What are you even talking about? Your concentration begins to wane. As near as you are to the answers, something outside this moment is distracting you. As you pulled from that vision, and you all of a sudden become lipid, as it were, almost liquid. You've not yet lost what you have found, but you're near to it. You're very aware of where you actually are now, standing in front of a clock at the back of a cathedral, and your companions not far off. You had not used the scroll. Rune had interjected. And now, the Rune and the bishop are sitting down for a game of chess. You can feel Rune's nervousness as he takes his seat. You can feel him comforting himself that he was the best in the city of brass. No one has beaten him. And though he faces a skull-like visage, but then you think, this is distraction. I was so close to finding my purpose, and here I am. But yet, as you fight for concentration, Rune, the bishop, takes his seat at this 3-tier board, and all the pieces are laid out. It's been a little while for you, but not long enough for you to forget your prowess as you begin analyzing the board and every strategic move, looking at the ground, the land, and the air, wondering what his strategy, what some undead relic from a long time ago could possibly open up against you. The bishop, however, seems excited, almost full of energy in this. I've not been this excited in a long time, sorcerer.
I have to say, I'm quite looking forward to this myself.
You sound so washed out. You know, honestly, I'm surprised. I always thought that my end would be met by heroes one day, bursting through the door and saying, You, servant of Vecna, you've done enough evil. And some passion and some beautiful art and battle would be woven throughout this temple. But I find your party rather diet. Where is your vigor? Are you going through the motions here? If so, you can hope to defeat me. Maybe, since the cat's got your tongue, it's the dreary mood. We really do need some music in here, don't we? As you hear that, you begin to hear something you shouldn't hear. Rain, but you're far underground. As he begins to channel magic, the bard begins to sing. As she rises up off the ground, the magic of the cathedral raining through him. Oh, so beautiful. As she's now sitting at the organ, playing music as a bard should do, one by one. Ah, that's much better. What emotion you've robbed me of. I almost feel restored. Shall we begin? The bishop begins moving the pieces across the board, so confident and so quick, looking at Rune as he moves a piece. Rune, moving in turn. You guys watch as piece after piece are going through the board. Pieces taken here, pieces taken here, on the air, in the ground. All the while the bishop narrates the fight. Good move. Ever with his unmoving jaw, the organs playing in the background, the rain hitting the cathedral as this match against foes in chess, in life or death. I'm sure you've come to the realization now. I'm more than just an undead opponent. I'm far more ancient than that. I am the cathedral. Perhaps we need guests. As impossibly, the doors of the cathedral open. A horde of undead begin to march down the aisle in tow, one by one, in perfect step, coming down, glassy-eyed, as they begin to separate and turn down the individual pews and take their seat to a theater that you didn't even know you were participating in. This match, the match of millennia, will matter. As he takes in the symphony, as you guys are looking at each other, wondering what to do. Stop! You came here for a reason. What was it?
I'm trying to break the seal on the door that Loki's behind.
And why would a sorcerer, chess player from the city of Brass, be seeking Bodhi?
He was a servant of Beckman. We're trying to defeat Beckman.
Are you?
We are.
Interesting. You're in a precarious position. I would look carefully at your move. All right. So now, Rune, you have to choose. Before you are 3 coins face upside down. To keep this fair, I wrote down the bishop's moves beforehand. I determined the bishop's moves by rolling a 1d3 minus 1. So I don't want you to make the fatal error of thinking that there's 3 different checks written there. There could be, but there could also be 3 of the same, and there could be 2 of the same and 1 different. I rolled a 1d3 minus 1 and wrote the results of his rolls at the bottom of each of those coins. You succeeded your insight check, so you know the bishop's skill level. However, I don't want you to get into the trap of thinking that grants you any advantage carries the day, right? So really what it's about is calling the correct check. I suppose if you're between two, you can look at the stats to decide. But I'm going to have you turn over the coin. I have zero control of whether you win or lose against the bishop at this point. And I wanted to make that clear to you for reasons.
Okay.
So before you begin your chess match, take an intermission. I'm sure you got to pee.
I'm already peeing.
Screamed at the bandage me.
Oh my gosh. Brian, that was crazy!
Oh, it's getting juicy.
Oh my gosh, that was the hypest thing I've ever experienced in my whole
Hype
life.
train.